Hey, listen, mate, you have to save me. Please get me out of here. What do you mean I killed millions? I didn't kill anyone. I was following orders. I was a civil servant. It's me or the commies. You have to choose. We have to get out of here. What don't you understand? Right, so look at this. This is the convent of the Cappuccini. It was built in 1340 and it was donated to the Cappuccini order in 1603. Capuciner Cloister. The first stop of your trip to Buenos Aires. Good morning, esteemed viewers. This is Austria. No, it's not. This is Brixen, and we are still in Italy. We are in the autonomous region of South Tyrol. And this place here has a double name. It has an Austrian name, which is Brixen, and it has an Italian name, which is Bressanone. Let's stick to Brixen. But look at the views, man. Look at these mountains. Fresh water running. Some absolutely spectacular scenery, isn't it? So I want you to paint a picture in your head. Imagine you are Josef Mengele, and every morning you get to hear the birds, the flipping river flowing down the mountain. Every morning till your passport arrives with your new name. You are now called Helmut Gregor. You're not called Josef Mengele anymore. These are things of the past. Oh my God. So yeah, welcome to Bressanone, to Brixen, a major hub of the famous and infamous Ratlines. So imagine you have just won the deadliest and most catastrophic war in the history of mankind. You have liberated the concentration camps. You have seen what organized evil looks like. And suddenly, as you sit in your office, enjoying the moment, your intelligence officer walks in with a very silent voice, not to be heard, and says, "Mate, some of these people are actually quite good at building rockets." "How good?" you say. "The best," they answer. And that is more or less how the space race started. So welcome to today's video, where we will be visiting Brixen here. We will be moving to the nearby city of Bolzano, Bozen in Austrian, and to the not so nearby city of Tigre. You weren't expecting that, right? In Argentina, a little bit north of Buenos Aires. So what's the story with South Tyrol and Italy, man? South Tyrol. So here's how this area got to become flipping Italian. So in order to solve that mystery, we have to go back to the First World War. It's the same World War that the Austro-Hungarian Empire literally collapsed. For example, do you remember one of the episodes in Romania? We talked about how Romania doubled itself with Transylvania and all those territories after the First World War, simply for participating in it. Italy did more or less the same thing. They reached an accord with the Allies, with the Entente. I think it was called the London Accord. And what was agreed was for Italy to get these territories up until the Brenner Pass. Brenner Pass, which in our day and age is part of the border between Italy and Austria. The same Brenner Pass that also Mengele used to sneak himself into Brixen and into the Capuciner Cloister here. And not only here, to be fair. I mean, it is my understanding that these people were using a lot of safe houses to protect these psychopaths. Look at our faithful panda man. So, the First World War finishes, it's now the 1920s, and guess who? Mussolini starts the Italianization of this area. He would bring en masse, for example, Italian workers, especially from the south, to populate the area, to work here, to have families here, just to flip the amount of local people here that were speaking German. 20 years further on, and it's the 1940s. Suddenly there is the failed Austrian painter in the game. Now Mussolini is kind of scared. He doesn't want to lose these areas, so he reaches an agreement with Adolf that, okay, one German folk, one Reich, yeah, that kind of not applies to this here area. Besides that, this Italianization process is kind of a nightmare for the locals. I mean, for fuck's sake, even now, I think the majority of the people speak German. So the Second World War starts, the Second World War ends, and Italy has to retreat. I mean, they have to leave the place to Nazi control. I think we discussed a little bit when we went to Salò. We discussed a little bit how the Nazis used Salò as a buffer zone. Well, this area was, the South Tyrol area, was under their control. Italy got South Tyrol back only after the defeat, the permanent defeat of the Nazis. But even that did not go smoothly. The decades to follow, there were tensions. I mean, the local people did not want to be part of Italy. And the matter got resolved in the beginning of the 1970s. That was the point that Italy and Austria sat, together and talked about it. Okay, we need to find a solution here. And the solution basically was, okay, Italy keeps the place, but South Tyrol has very favorable tax laws here. If you drive here, you will see all these signs saying South Tyrol Autonomous Region. It kind of keeps everybody happy, All right, man, look at us. We are in Bolzano. Ciao. È possibile visitare questo bunker?
C'è da prendere l'appuntamento.
So apparently, in order for you to visit this famous bunker from the Second World War, you actually need to make a phone call to plan this visit. This is something that I didn't do. We are sorry if you have come all the way here on your own. I'm sorry too, right? Unfortunately, the bunker only opens through reservation, as it is only visitable by guided tours. Now you know. So I made the executive decision before we go to the monastery of the Franciscans to make a visit to the stadium of the pride of the city, the team that's called South Tyrol. Now the pride of the city are playing a flipping play-out game against Bari tomorrow. A game that we will not be attending because tomorrow I'm going to Torino for the derby and I have already paid for that accommodation and I don't want to lose that money. So we will not attend to this game, and I already feel bad about it because let me show you the stadium, man, because it looks gorgeous. South Tyrol, as high as the Alps. It's completely closed, unfortunately. So this stadium doesn't seem to be having curvas. It has a stand like this, and there is another one towards us. So this is what it looks like. You see the stand and the mountain. So the visitors take only this sector. The first game was a draw in Bari, and now it's the return game, the same play out. I mean, just like last year we attended the Sampdoria Salernitana games because of the shenanigans of the Italian league, Gravina and all. This is the same thing, but for this year. So as we make our way to the Franciscan monastery, let's start our discussion, man, because this whole will to visit these two places actually came to me last year while in Argentina. So picture this out, right? I am at Buenos Aires and I decide to visit the Tigre. Tigre is actually a city, only it's way too close to Buenos Aires. So in my mind, it's one big thing. But Tigre is actually a separate city with its delta, a very beautiful delta, mind you. I mean, I strongly advise any one of you who visits Buenos Aires to try and arrange a small, boat tour in the delta. At one point, I found myself on the same bus, the same line that Adolf Eichmann used to take to go back home, And believe me when I tell you, when something like this happens and you realize it, it's weird, it's a chilling experience. And with all that in mind, let me send you to Buenos Aires, which I'm pretty sure you missed, and we come back later. Mater Pietatis, La Pietà. This is what it means, right? La Pietà, Mater Pietatis. Oh, look where we are. This was one of the first houses where Josef Mengele stayed upon arriving in Argentina. The doctor of Auschwitz. Right next to me is the river Tigre. Look at our guy, bloody. He's the Lewis Hamilton of all boatmen. River Tigre continues that way and becomes part of the delta, the confluence of many rivers, which in turn ends up in the Rio de la Plata. This cat has nothing to do with tigers. As a matter of fact, it represents a jaguar because this is the animal that the first Spanish, or better said Basque, explorer of the area, Juan de Garay, noticed in these here marshlands, and they thought that it was an Asian tiger. So, yeah, they named the place Tigre. So while we are walking to the stadium of Tigre, let's discuss a little bit this subject, man. I mean, why did people like Mengele, like Eichmann, who also used to live in the northern part of Buenos Aires, why did these people end up here? And most importantly, is it truth that Argentina basically invited them? Now, despite what most of you probably believe, Argentina was not a safe haven for Nazis, not more in any way than some other countries like the United States of America, like Soviet Union, and most importantly, West Germany themselves. This is probably a training ground. We have to find a stadium. I think it's somewhere that way. Let's search. Bloody hell, man, we are totally wrong. So I followed Google Maps without paying attention that it was actually leading me here to this training facility and not to the proper ground of the team. The implication of Nazis in the modernization of Argentina is not entirely false. I mean, there is an incident, there is an example of a guy called Richter who came here and he promised Perón to basically create the Argentine nuclear program. So Perón sent him in the middle of a lake in Bariloche for a year to make his experiments. The international community was very much upset, considering that, yeah, that's it, Argentina is becoming a nuclear power. But believe me when I tell you, man, nothing could be further than the truth. The guy was an absolute fraud, and the results of his experiments were nowhere near as fruitful as Perón would probably want. The truth behind all this is that Argentina, much like the other South American countries, did not have the money nor the means to exploit any potential former Nazi, I don't know, scientists. Probably the most prominent is Werner von Braun, who organized the US space program. Not to mention the infamous Klaus Barbie. Yeah, what can we say here? The guy ended up being a drug trafficker. Not to mention his presence in Bolivia when Che Guevara was murdered. Anyway, what I've been meaning to say with all this is that the influential Nazis that ended up in the United States or in the Soviet Union or stayed in West Germany were many more than the ones who ended up here in Argentina. So, if you ask me, Argentina served as a scapegoat for all these big countries that really did host the former Nazis. Not gonna lie, man, I mean, it took an hour to get here. I was in a totally different location. Check it out, we found it. Tigre. Can you bloody see anything, man? And this is a mosaic. I like it, it has character. Yeah, it's hermetically closed. Diego is omnipresent. But these graffitis, man, I mean, these graffitis are Japanese yakuza. They also have their tribute to the mothers. Wow. Tigre Sudamericano. It's not open. Nope, it's not open. Pity. But I mean, look at the thing, man. It's really old and full of charm. Proper concrete structure, you know? You won't believe what I just realized, man. So I took bus number 203 to come here to the stadium of Tigre from the western part of this suburb. I mean, I'm literally shocked at the moment. It was the same bus that Adolf Eichmann used to take from his work at the Mercedes-Benz factory to his house. I mean, this is wild, man. We have to take the bus and go back.
El lugar de la casa de Eichmann era ahí. Ese la usa el estacionamiento.
Gracias. Look at this, man. So across the street is actually a school over there. That is the bus stop. And it was on this road here that in 1960 two cars with Mossad agents stopped and wait, you know? Wait for that same bus that we took to come here and drop Adolf Eichmann on his return from work. The biggest murderer of our times. Mossad did not arrest Eichmann here. Mossad actually had no business to be in Argentina in the first place because there were no extradition agreements, you know, between the two countries. They basically found out his whereabouts following the efforts of Fritz Bauer, a Jewish lawyer who basically spent his entire life in the search of former Nazis, you know. So they came in utter secrecy, they waited for him, they basically kidnapped him, and in order to get him out of the country, they dragged him and dressed him as a member of the crew of El Al, the flight that would leave Argentina. Hola, chicas. I don't foresee a bright future for you. So what do we think, man, of this absolutely eerie presence of Eichmann in the Argentine life? I tell you what, it wasn't a simple task getting in that bus. I mean, of course the bus has changed, the route probably has changed, the area definitely has changed. But still, you know? Anyway, as for Mengele, who also crawled in the shadows here in the northern zone of Buenos Aires. The very moment Mossad came and arrested Eichmann, that was the moment that he basically shit his pants and decided to flee. Mengele, believe it or not, died of old age in a beach close to Sao Paulo in Brazil. The very guy who experimented with kids, man, in Auschwitz. Talking about closure, right? So look at this. This is a statue for one of the carabinieri of Bolzano called Salvo d'Acquisto. This guy was born in Napoli and he was executed by the Nazis in 1943 in this here city, the same city that later provided a safe passage to all those criminals. Look at San Francisco up there. One has to wonder what his opinion would have been, right? Now let's have a look. Scaffolding, really? We have scaffolding into our lives? That was anticlimactic, wasn't it? So look at this. This shows the entire network, I guess, of the Franciscan monasteries in Austria. It's very difficult for me to associate this place with Eichmann. Like, how? So me, much like probably a lot of you, always thought that the South American countries invited former Nazis to help them with knowledge, with science, with everything. And when I was in Argentina, I was reading stories, first of all, of scam. Where do we begin? Shall we begin with Richterman, a guy that promised nuclear energy to Perón, and he ended up scamming the whole nation. Eichmann, bureaucrat, criminal. Mengele, psychopath, criminal. These were the people that ended up in Argentina. So the more I stood there trying to find out exactly who were the people that ended up in Argentina, the more frustrated I got with the idea that they were essentially the scum of the earth. And this begs the flipping question, okay then, what happened to all the scientists? I mean, if the scum ended up in America Latina, what the hell happened to the non-scum, to the true people that could build a rocket? Well, I'll tell you what happened. They ended up either in the United States or in the Soviet Union or, believe it or not, in West Germany. They stayed in West Germany. It's such a horrifying idea that the very nations who helped our world get rid of that evil ended up hiring them. So this is an installation in memory of a woman and children deported to the Bolzano Bozen Nazi prison camp. Here in this city operated a transitory concentration camp that led people to the proper concentration camps, and the people responsible for its management after the Second World War returned here through the monasteries to find a somewhat easy escape to Argentina, Brazil, and all the rest. Do we even need to speak about the proper Prats? Do we need to speak about von Braun? I mean, he put Apollo 11 on the moon. Or, for those of you who don't really believe that, to the desert of Nevada. I mean, the guy even appeared on Disney, man. Like, and you're telling me about justice and Nuremberg trials and you name it. The guy appeared on Disney. Truman asked the CIA to bring people that are no active Nazis. The CIA named this Operation Paperclip and simply erased the past from their files. Like, really now? Now, regarding the Soviets didn't have a care in the world. No paperclips were needed for the Soviets, man. The Soviets arrested everybody and brought them to Moscow, or God knows where, to build their space program. Manfred von Ardenne would be the most prominent example regarding the Soviet Union. As for West Germany, man, I mean, this is the most annoying of them all. West Germany passed a law that would allow former Nazi civil servants to reacquire their jobs. And here enters Adolf Heusinger. The guy was chief of NATO. The guy was literally chief of NATO for 3 years back in the 60s. I mean, what are we talking about here? What kind of justice are we talking about here? And while all this was happening in secret, mind you, the rest of the world was cheering for the Nuremberg trials, or for the fact that Mossad managed to capture Eichmann, and kidnapped him. What's happening with justice nowadays? Not nowadays, like literally forever. What a horrible monument, man. I'm not sure if we have seen so far any other monument so obviously, pro-fascist. I mean, literally all over the thing are the fascists, Okay, let's move on from this place. I still find it absolutely impossible to believe that this here place was part of the international war criminal highway, So here's how it worked. Let's pretend that you are a war criminal. Let's pretend that you are one of these rats, willing to jump on the rat line and get lost in South America or something. You would find your way through the mountains to one of these monasteries. The monks would provide you shelter. They would provide different clothing and also fake identities. Actually, fake baptisms that would give a fake certificate. Now, with that certificate, you would eventually find your way to bigger cities like Rome, or port cities like Genova, for example. In these cities, the Red Cross would essentially provide a passport using the new name provided by the monks in the monasteries. And you would eventually end up in one of these countries, Argentina, Brazil, etc., under that fake name. Now, probably most of you wonder, okay, why on earth did the Vatican accept that? That's a very good question, man. I mean, there is still not a clear answer to that. Although the Vatican has admitted being culprit and all, I think the main reason has to do with the threat of communism. And I also think that regimes like Adolf's, surely they had some sort of communication with the church, right? If you are the regime, you do business, with the church. And connections like that do not go away easily. Not to mention that there were probably a lot of monks that were sympathizing with the cause. Thank God there were also other monks that were not. What on earth, man? These people have a flipping mummy in that museum. A mummy found very close to the border between Italy and Austria. A mummy that was killed, murdered 5,000 years ago, almost. Really amazing. You don't expect to see that, We associate mummies with Egypt because of the process. But that one was a natural mummy. I mean, he was preserved under the snow, and the snow kept his tissues. We usually discover bones, because the soft tissues and the wood are decomposed. But if you are buried under thick ice, you are preserved. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I didn't have the slightest idea about this. Look at this, man, our favorite subject, bullet holes. These are covered. You saw in the video the place where Eichmann was essentially abducted, because back then Argentina didn't really have the incredibly good relations that it has now with Israel. So Eichmann is being brought back to Jerusalem to face trial. A German Jewish philosopher called Hannah Arendt attended the event as a correspondent for the New Yorker. Her testimony was later published as a book on the banality of evil. Now take a moment here to think about this title, The Banality of Evil. You see, the prosecutors had promised a monster, and not only to Hannah Arendt, to the whole of humanity essentially. A monster that would be put on trial and would be given the death penalty for his crimes. Instead of that, in Hannah Arendt's words, she saw a bureaucrat. Eichmann was a civil servant. He was following orders, doing his job, ordering for millions to be sacrificed. That was his job, for which he was proud. He considered that he did a good job. He wanted a promotion. Yeah. The mindless bureaucrat who is incapable of thinking for himself is, according to Hannah Arendt, a much more dangerous species than the monster. She realizes that for the state of Israel, the trial of Eichmann was a show. We put on trial the monster that murdered not millions of human beings, but millions of Jews. Now, you don't need me to tell you what kind of criticism Hannah Arendt received for extracting this conclusion. Also in Arendt's book is the concept of the Jewish councils, the people who collaborated with the Nazis and essentially helped the Nazis do what they did. Some of these people were also Jewish, who later became members of the Israeli government. I mean, it's so similar to what we have seen in the slave trade, you know, with the local collaborators in Africa that were essentially doing business with the Europeans, selling their own people. Such a disaster, man. Very often, I think that the channel is essentially about justice, or the lack of justice, better said. It's so depressing, man. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, what do you guys think about all of this? It's beyond comprehension how we do. We need to make a good start at some point. Hey people, so I decided to finish today's video like this in the comfort of my home and reflect a little bit on what we have seen. Like I said in the video, I do have this feeling that we kind of talk a lot about injustices in the channel, which is quite heavy, if I'm perfectly honest. The examples are so many. I mean, we saw Mengele, right? He died in a beach in Brazil. Or in Argentina itself, Videla died at old age in his shower. The time in prison was minimal, you know? Or Pinochet thought he was a hero, right? This is the level of insanity in some of them. Or even in football. I mean, there are so many examples. The only one I will mention at the moment is my favorite Liverpool and Hillsborough. They tried to bury it for so long. So my only wish is that at some point we will make a step, because the more these people feel that nobody will touch them, the more they will continue to act the way they act. And the examples we have today are endless. In West Asia, in Central Asia, in Africa, in flipping hell, in Europe itself, in a way, and North America. We haven't forgotten about North America. So, yeah, this is my only wish, that at some point humanity is going to find the courage to punish the leaders who abuse their power and bully the ones without. But until then, we continue, I guess. So, I will be seeing you in the next videos. I have decided to make some changes in the channel, which you will most probably realize starting from the next video. And there is a new series coming up on a subject that is very dear to me, because I have lived in one of these countries. So yeah, I will see you in the next videos. Bye bye for now.